Cool. So I think our live streaming setup is complete, so we can start at any time we want, right? Oh, really?
Okay, I'm live. So let's do this. Great. So good evening, America, and good morning, China. Welcome to the Bond International Virtual Live Performance Festival. This is the Bond panel talk. In this panel, we're going to discuss after COVID-19, what's performance like? My name is Eddie Hanchen Feng. I'm a playwright who teaches at the Central Academy of Drama in Beijing. I am your host tonight. Welcome. And to begin with, I wish to quote Shakespeare, "All the world's a stage." And we have seen too many dramas on this stage ever since the unexpected coronavirus hit us 9 months ago. Unfortunately, it is still here with us today, bringing some new sort of new normalcy, which is not normal at all by changing so many things in our daily life. Theater is one of them. We have experienced such desperate moments. Cirque du Soleil filed for bankruptcy protection earlier this year. Then she fell closed after 7.5 years. And Broadway, which has suspended only for 2 days after 9/11, will not reopen until next January. As theater people, it is not our job to just sit and watch. We have to make sense to this very stage and create meaning for this time we live in. That is why we began to see some new forms of performances rising lately. We all have so many things to say and so many questions to ask, and now is precisely the time for the theater community to make a sound. So today, we have 6 incredible minds across all disciplines to share with us their ideas, insights, aiming to find one way out for theater. And they are Hunter Theater Professor, the founder of Theater Matters panel, Jonathan Kelp. Welcome, Professor Kelp. The Executive Director and the Director of Programs at Martin E. Siegel Theater Center, Dr. Frank Hunschker. Hello, Frank. Good to see you. And drama reviewer, the co-founder of Playbill.com, Robert Villegas, who will be joining us later. And Tony Award-winning producer, the producing director of the Assembly Theater, Meredith Lucille. Hello, Meredith. Hello. A theater director at Chinese National Academy of Arts, James Jin Lee. Hello, James. Where are you? Great. Brazilian performer, theater director, and cultural producer, an artist in residence at Watermill Center, Rafael Viana Coutinho, who is facing some technical difficulties and will join us shortly. Altogether, we have 6 panelists, which means 6 topics. So each panelist will have 10 minutes to share it with us. Please keep the time. When there are 3 minutes left, I will kindly remind you with a pleasant song. A sound like this. It's quite pleasant. Okay, and there will be a 5 minutes for a question period, comments, or whatever you want to say after each talk. And when all panelists finish their talks, there will be a 10 minutes Q&A session for open questions. So, and that's all. Shall we begin? Yeah, let's do this.
Oh, is he stuck in the picture freezing? Okay, I can take the turn. Yeah. So I can share a little bit experience of hosting this festival first, right? And then we can start the panel talk. Good, Eddie?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, you were freezing in the picture. Yeah, so I'm gonna talk about just a little bit briefly about the festival. Yeah,
Yes,
and yeah, so hi everyone on the live streaming platform and all the panelists. I'm so glad to meet every one of you on this virtual space. Yeah, and so I'm Tianding. I'm the artistic director and also the producer of the Bound International Virtual Live Performance Festival. It's a long name. I start to plan to host it since June because of the quarantine, and I saw a lot of artists trying to work on something and to not stop creating arts because of the virus. And I actually met Frank virtually. He didn't meet me, but I saw the talk in the Segal Center, and it's very inspiring. So when I know there are artists there who wants a platform to perform, so I decide as a originally from China, that artist who is working here. So I want to build this platform, especially between America and China, using this live streaming platform because we know the situation of the politics and it's very our nervous is very tight all the time, especially as Chinese who is living in America now. So, but I think we shouldn't stop communicating and sharing our real experience as human, as artists in this hard time. So I'm trying to hosting this festival to have all of you guys and all the creators and performances to show to people all around the world, to show American audience what Chinese artists are doing, and to show Chinese people what's the outside world. So we have done like 2-3 weeks of the performances, and it goes pretty well. On average, every performance and events have over 5,000 viewers. So I think tonight our panel will even be viewed and watched more than that, because we will share very valuable experience and ideas, not only about what is happening in China, but also everywhere in the world. Yeah, so I'm just really glad every one of you come to this panel and share your experience. And so we have a time limit, but it's fine. So just be casual and take your time to talk and share everything you want to share with us and with everyone who is watching this in the world. Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tianting. Thank you for the pep talk. So today we're here to talk about the new performances. Speaking of that, the live stream theater has been a hot topic since the outbreak of coronavirus. It used to be the show must go on, but now it's the show must go online. Among all the works, Richard Nelson's Apple Family trilogy enjoyed a highly acclaimed reputation. How did this show appeal to you? Or what is your attitude towards this new form? Professor Jonathan Kelp, as our first speaker, would you like to fill us in?
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Tianding, for inviting me to be part of this. Yes, I'm speaking about Richard Nelson's Apple Family Plays today. So the Apple Family Play cycle began 10 years ago as a single play about a middle-class family living in the upstate town of Rhinebeck, New York, written and directed by Richard Nelson. It opened at the Public Theater on the day its action was set, which is November 3rd, 2010, which was our midterm elections. And that precise contemporaneity was the work's gimmick, if you will. Over a meal that was prepared on stage, the family talked about their personal lives, also books and articles they read, and current events, including Obama, Sarah Palin, national polarization. It didn't really have a climax except the disaffection of the family brother, who was a lawyer from the Democratic Party. And Nelson called this work a disposable play in a program note. He considered it an experiment. However, he and the artistic director of the Public Theater wanted to do more experimenting. So they scheduled another new play for the following year with exactly the same gimmick, if you will. a continuation of the story with the same excellent cast playing the same family roles. Eventually, this became a third play and a fourth play, a tetralogy called the Apple Family Plays, with a Chekhovian subtitle, Scenes from Life in the Country. All of the plays opened at the Public Theater on the exact day when their actions were set, with the dates chosen for historical and political resonance in American life. We saw the family reacting to those landmark points in time. So the second play was on the 10th anniversary of 9/11, September 11th, 2011. This third play was on Election Day 2012, when Obama was reelected. The third play was on November 22nd, 2013, the 50th anniversary of JFK's assassination. Richard Nelson assumed the cycle was complete then. He went on to write another cycle about another Rhinebeck family, but the Apple Family Plays were complete from 2013 on. But when the COVID pandemic began this year, Nelson decided that the most effective response he could make artistically was to revisit the Apple family and continue their story during 2020, showing them interacting on Zoom, trying to stay connected like all of us, discussing and responding to what's going on in the world as they always did in the other plays. Nelson eventually wrote 3 Zoom sequels, each play live streamed for the first time on the day when their actions were set, just like the other plays. But this time the dates weren't chosen for their historical connections. The first play was in April, What Do We Need to Talk About? The second play was in July, And So We Come Forth. And the third was just a few days ago in September, Incidental Moments of the Day. In the end, the extended Apple Family cycle, which Nelson says is now finished, became a heptalogy, a 7-part work comprising about 11 or 12 hours of playing time. I'm just going to show you a few photographs very quickly in a PowerPoint so you get a sense of what this looks like, okay? Here is the very first stage, the second stage play, Sweet and Sad, okay? Here's the third stage play, Regular Singing. Here's the Zoom image from the first Zoom play in April. And here is a Zoom image from the second Zoom play in July, okay? The Zoom chapters of this series have been, for me, some of the richest and most moving theatrical performances that I have seen during the pandemic. It's the most poignant and purposeful use of Zoom that I've seen by theater makers. And I thought that's what Tiending wanted to know, is what was moving to me, what was impressive to me. Far from being disposable, as Nelson obviously realized after the first play, the Apple Family material turned out to be an excellent vehicle for recontextualizing modest, unassuming personal stories as very pungent cultural ruminations. The plays pointed up the larger resonances of their background topical events, but they didn't do it with polemic. They did it by making us care about these characters whose lives that we have now followed for a decade. It might help to know that even before the pandemic, Nelson's Rhinebeck plays and his Chekhov adaptations were being called a new type of theater in New York. They were staged extremely intimately, with actors speaking very low at everyday volume speech, much more amenable to a film type volume than a stage type vocal volume. The performance spaces all had grids of microphones overhead to pick up all the vocal nuances that people couldn't hear live. And most spectators actually had assisted listening devices, which is not usual in the theater. The pieces were all filmed and broadcast on WNET television, so it is fair to call them hybrids of film and theater. I feel that this is one reason why the move to Zoom with this material was so natural and smooth. The theatrical idiom was never broad or operatic in the theater to begin with. It was always intimate. So the characters' obvious pent-up need to talk and listen to one another during the COVID isolation was completely understandable, not just as a reflection of the pandemic reality, but as a continuation of what they always wanted from one another, probing and cajoling each other, gently baiting one another, showing off for one another. Zoom just allowed them and us to zoom in on all of that closer. All of the Apple plays at the public were built around the preparation and consumption of a meal. And on Zoom also, the family ate together, or rather, living in 4 different places, they arranged to eat at the same time in front of their screens to make themselves feel like they were sharing the meals in person. And the details of all that food mishigas, as we say in Yiddish, the little digs about choices and omissions, the alcohol consumption, the judgments about that, it was never more vivid and pertinent than it was on Zoom. In the first play, Barbara, the sister whose house was the nest for all the pre-Zoom plays, she just came home from the hospital because she had COVID. Now her brother was living with her and didn't seem in a hurry to leave. It was an actor boyfriend who was unemployed because all actors from the stage are unemployed right now. And he had moved to the town to work in a restaurant. But he was ill and had to isolate in the same apartment with his girlfriend, the sister of the family. So they were on different video feeds, even though they were just a few feet from one another. So amid all this, Zoom became a force for unity and intimacy while the pandemic was pushing everything to fracture apart. Zoom became a self-consciously double-edged vehicle, just as theater is often a self-consciously double-edged vehicle that enhances the illusion of intimacy and distancing all at once, and making those qualities illuminate one another. There is an eavesdropping dimension to the allure of the Apple family plays, and even an element of neighborly competition. The plays tell intimate stories about spouses and ex-spouses and boyfriends and girlfriends and career anxieties. They report on an amazing array of writing by Jane Austen, Chekhov, Maeterlinck, people that the family members have read. And as we watch, we can't help but measure ourselves against these people, comparing our ability to connect and keep intimacies alive during COVID with their ability. They are not perfect, they are troubled, but the way they figure out how to touch and feel for one another through their screens is enviable. To be fully honest about them is to admit that they aren't typical, even though they're presented as typical. They're all of equal intelligence, they're interested in ideas, they're inquisitive, they're good listeners. It's very rare to have a family like this outside the theater. Nelson seems to have conceived them as an aspirational vision of family in America, despite their ordinariness. And for me, that's a refreshing contrast with so many other visions of typical families that have connected to mass audiences in serials. You see that satirically in The Simpsons. You see it connected with sports in a show like Friday Night Lives. But you have to go all the way back to a TV show like The Waltons to find anything this sincere on TV. And that family, the Waltons, never discussed politics. So I believe that this Apple family cycle, especially the Zoom plays, is part of a major work. And its most remarkable quality is its modesty. It's a piece that started with limited scope and then ended up expanding to provide a frame for a very, very capacious vision. And I could say more about that, but I think I have probably spoken for 10 minutes, and I'll leave it at that and let people ask questions.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for the sharing. Thank you very much. So now we have 5 minutes. Questions, comments, anything you want to say? So who will be the first?
I have a question. So I didn't realize it's already 10 minutes because I think it's a very good presentation of the show and the thoughts. I have a question because I've seen a lot of online shows. Sometimes the boundary between TV shows or movie and theater get blurry if it's an online show. If it's very well produced and the picture is too good, sometimes I feel it's a recording. And so the liveness, or is a live movie. So what do you think of that? Maybe this play can be an example to explain that.
Sometimes when I talk about aesthetics in the theater, I talk about the difference between artists who use the stage as a window looking in and others who use the stage as a window looking out. There are outward directed artists like, I don't know, Goethe or Richard Wagner who want to present an expansive vision of the world. But then there are artists like Beckett who are asking you to look inward through a window into an intimate environment in which the specifics all really, really matter. And I think Zoom is asking us to be part of an inward looking experience. And the kinds of plays on Zoom that try and substitute for an outward directed sort of theatricality, I find them unwatchable. I can't get there in my investment as a viewer. I've tried. But I think that is the key to using Zoom is you really need to, A, remember what your audiences are going through. They're all exhausted with Zoom. And B, use Zoom to look inward. So this is my response to your question.
Oh, that's very, very inspiring. Yeah. Does anyone else wants to ask a question? Oh, Frank, you're muted.
Will this cycle be continued? Do you know what the public is planning?
No, Richard Nelson has said that it's now finished. That's the end of the Apple cycle. It's a 7-part cycle, and he, I'm sure he'll keep writing, but not with this family. Nevertheless, I just want to say that there are certain works that are written over a long period of time, and in this case, we're talking about 10 years, that surprise even their authors with the way that they find that they can absorb everything that is happening in the world around the author. This happened with Faust. It happened with Don Quixote. These are absurd comparisons with the Apple family plays, I am aware, but I'm just explaining that sometimes this happens without the author knowing it, that he starts out with a modest ambition just around some local circumstances, but he finds that the thing becomes a sponge for everything that is happening around it in the world. And I do believe that is one of the surprising things we're dealing with the Apple family cycle. It became something that absorbed and kind of knew more than its author.
Thank you. I haven't seen this show, but it is on my to-do list. Thank you very much for sharing it with us. So let's move on. Okay, I'm going to. Yeah. During the pandemic, the Segal Center achieved something remarkable that a lot of institutions did not. That is, holding a daily talk with theater makers and academics throughout the world for 18 weeks. This is quite incredible. A lot of important people have been there. I have been there, not important at all. But Richard Foreman and Eugenio Barba, Thomas Ostamaya, they are the figures. What have you learned from curating such an event? How do you see our collective responses? Frank, you have the floor.
First of all, thank you for inviting me to this part of your online festival. And I like very much what Eddie said. The show must go on line. Yeah, that's a very good pun, and I think that should be used. And in a way, we are doing it. Of course, right now we are performing ourselves on screens, and we communicate. We listen to each other. So in a way, yes, of course, it is a medium, as Jonathan said, that is intimate. It's close, in close spaces, whether it's our room or what we talk about. So it is something that is changing the world as we know it. I remember, Eddie, on the Siegel talk, when you were on, you said, we thought cyberspace is not real. It doesn't exist. It's fake. It's a makeup. But now you said it's the only thing that's real if we want to communicate. So it is quite a remarkable moment of change. And this is what I learned from hosting 90 talks, close to 90 talks with 150 participants from 48 or 49 countries around the world. It was also born in a way out of a necessity. All our season was canceled. Normally we have the Siegel Theater. It's the space inside the Graduate Center CUNY, our university, where also Jonathan is. And we invite people to come over. We have readings, discussions, symposia, but it's all closed. We couldn't get in it, but I felt it's important to stay in contact and communication. And in a way, I think Anne Bogart said that when she was our talk, to knock at the door and say, "Hi there, what's going on? How are you doing?" Or Jean-Luc Nancy, the French philosopher, said, it's almost like the mother or the little baby, they do winke winke. They say, hi, hi, and you hi back, how are you, and what's going on. So this was basically the idea of the talk. At the time, we weren't really thinking it would go on for so long, how severe this crisis would be, this truly catastrophic event the world is going through, the entire world. So on one way, we were all separate from each other, far away from each other in small confined space. On the other hand, we were connected globally through Zoom, or now, as we do it today, through LARC. So it's a throwback, I think, to times when we are confronted with essential questions, which we perhaps, when we are teenagers or we are students or we wrestle with our first projects, artistic or books, and there's a time of loneliness, perhaps more solitude also, and but for many also not really, because you cannot go out, but you still also not alone if you have family members with you. So you're not even really alone, but you are cut off. So it's a situation of irritation, a situation of opening, perhaps also uninterrupted long thoughts that we normally do not have. And my thought was, we really should learn what artists are experiencing, what they are thinking. Artists have always been on the right side of social justice, on the long and complicated fight for freedom and liberty. Artists have been almost always on the right side. And they have an interest in the world. It was interesting that all these artists almost became philosophers or politicians. They cared about the world, the community, the families, not so much about their work, their play, their dialogues, or what they write, or the next thing that's being shown here. That it showed them as truly compassionate and I think incredibly generous people who deeply, deeply wrestle with this. Many, many artists said it's not radically different. Very often we are alone. We sit in our rooms. We write. We are shut off from the world. We are, as Jonathan earlier said, in our inner worlds. They are the ones who are actually connected to it. They anticipate the future, as Jacques Rancière said, that the French philosopher, that artists not only experience the moment as we all do, but some actually anticipate what will happen, what the future, what is in the air. And that's why theater is significant, why theater performance reflects what we are doing, and perhaps often is a step ahead. We went back to ask the old Bertolt Brecht question, or dictum. He said, new times need new forms of theater. New times need for theater and performance, of course, we say now. And I thought that his audience, he called them the children of the technological age. He wrote the plays for audience members who have seen the development of the car, the radio came up, the projector. the typewriter, incredible inventions that changed the life, everything, airplanes. And it was a time of great change. And also we live in that time even faster already, even without COVID, with internet and text messaging and GPS and Instagram, Zoom, and TikTok. The velocity is incredible. But all of a sudden, through COVID, it's like a car breaks, it flips over. We don't really know. It's stopped in the middle of a fast run. What will happen? So the artists we talked to, I think, reacted, of course, with shock that their productions were stopped. Milo Rao was in Brazil doing Antigone with indigenous activists, where he actually was rewriting the end because the activists didn't understand why she would die, and they said to him, just rewrite it. And many were the middle of performing or opening of plays, and Thomas Ostermeyer, who said, he had an opening, and now what he misses most is the chatter of the audience, and the play opens in the halls, the sign of liveness. And everybody basically also confirmed what Gertrude Stein once observed, that half of theater is actually that we call our friends, dress up, go together, see the play, then talk about it, eat something. It's a social function. It means we are alive, we care, we see what the world is about, what's love is and hate, what's cold and what's warm, and what's a stone is a stone. And as someone once said, and I think that this is what we really miss. I think most of the artists said it is not, even they are interested in Zoom as a new hybrid version, and it will exist. I think the Apple Plays, other ways of digital presence will be there. It's a great audience. It's also the older generation got into it. They now download files, listen to audio plays, go on YouTube. An entire generation also kept up to it. So there is a need for it. And perhaps theaters will have in the future, next to ballet and drama and opera, they might have also a digital outreach, not just to prepare for COVID times or the next virus, but in general, because it's a new hybrid way to connect, to collaborate, and to do it. Most did say it is not theater as we know it. Also, our generation, my generation, they say, no, it's not. The old definition from Peter Brook, there are like two people in a room, and one person observes, that's theater. I might even say there doesn't need to be an observer. In Brecht's idea of his Lehrstücke, you can just make an experience yourself. But the definition of the traditional theater and performance, it's not. We do need liveness. We do need bodies in a room. But as Jonathan points out, it's something new. It is something significant that is happening, and it's expanding our possibilities. And as we can write letters, we can write an email, we can type a letter, those anybody does, we can write an Instagram, we can write a text message. There are varieties of possibilities to communicate. There will be a variety of ways to create performances or to create meaning, to help us to understand where we come from, where we are going to, and these digital presence will be one. My big thing is, if once there is a vaccination out, people will love to go back to theater. They will see live performances where actors age the same moment as the audience members. So when you watch it, you share a moment in time and space. But it will be an addition. Hans Thies Lehmann always says the theater is a house and it has many, many rooms. And I think this is a new room. Where it is, we will see if it's the attic or the basement. Before we will learn that. A few notes, like 2 or 3. Toshiki Okada, the great Japanese director, didn't like rehearsing online, but he did it. But he said there was something interesting that actor and director share the same screen size. Actors normally are, in a room when the director is a much bigger presence. There's something interesting that there is a more democratic distribution of voices. You also don't talk over each other. Like even you guys are listening now, or you listen to Jonathan, we would not talk into it, which normally happens. So the idea, which makes it hard to teach, is of course Jonathan will know that students cannot talk in a real discussion. But I think there is something that is interesting, that there is a listening, and then it will be perhaps be a democratization, that like the public theater is a very big institution and they put on something, but it's like, after all, a camera and some microphones. But perhaps kids can do that. They're 13, 14, 15 years old and they come up with stuff. It will be hard to distinguish what's a professional and not. I do think virtual reality, once it takes on, will perhaps a bit more prominent. It will be significant. I'm surprised that the VR industry did not get into the whole COVID time, that they left it to Zoom. I think it will be big projections and domes. I think there will be big experiences with digital media, but it might not be fully Zoom, but it will always be that new genre will be, I think, now present and will be with us. And as a finishing moment, the performance that I thought that I liked very much, and it was The Met Forest by Carol Churchill, by Ashley Kelly Tata. It was done. They were rehearsing it. They got interrupted by COVID. She could end the project there or do something. And she said, I would like to find a way. And she created a hybrid that, what you said earlier, did not look like a TV show or people sitting around a table or a couch, what we also see on stages so much, where we often do think, why should it be like this? That's for TV. And they do it much better. So that's what many theater artists, we will never be able to compete with Netflix and HBO. And people have studied that for years, for decades. So let's not pretend we can come to this. But I think Ashley created something with the software that actors share in the same room. It was almost like a graphic novel. It didn't pretend to be piece theater. It had a significant, serious theme on revolution coming out of Romania, and of change before, in the middle, and after. So it resonated with it. And I was not so keen on seeing it, but she called and said, you have to come. So, but I was really surprised. And I felt that hybrid form, that software, they collaborated with Zoom. They got the software codes, they could manipulate it. And they had a stage manager in a room who would, call everything. They had to reinvent the wheels. But I think also it's a fantastic reinvention as the Apple Place. There's something we all can learn from, and it will be an addition. And I think from our talks, what we learned is that there's a great longing, a great desire to go back to the theater. Everybody thinks it has to be different. We have to engage with communities. We have to engage with people, with the audiences more. It has to be participatory, affordable, and how it was, the big machine. Feeding the big machine, the entertainment machine, has to stop, and theater has to reevaluate its mission of a ritual, of getting together, of sharing moments of the communities. And many said we're going to go into small communities, whether it's our neighborhood or actually moving out of big cities and creating something that has meaning for people, like Eugenio Barba in his village, or little in Denmark. So thank you so much for having me, and and you can have.
Thank you.
The discussion
short. Thank you, Frank. I hate to interrupt, but it's already more than 10 minutes, and good times always seems to be so short. So we have 2 minutes for questions. So anyone like to raise a question or make a comment? So I'm going to ask one question. Frank, in the first place, what kind of motives encourage you to curate such an event? Is it desperation or fear, or the strong urge to communicate with each other? What is your motive?
Well, I think I feel very strongly that art is of significance. It has something to say. It has to take a stand. It has to create meaning for our lives. It has to help us to understand life, and that artists often are the ones who seem to be closer to whatever that is in whatever form they come. And so, what goes through their mind, what they are thinking of, what they're thinking about and experiencing, is I was truly curious, and I also wanted to know how they are doing and what are they thinking, how are they adapting, did they find something we didn't know, and especially then also from all the countries around the world to hear how different the individual experiences are for artists, especially in what kind of different inspirations they got from. Or So I thought that we also would help us to get out of our isolated experience of it. Our window, we look out in the world, there's a wall, and someone already cut the window, how we look outside. But everybody on these talks has a very specific way, and we learn more who we really are, also listening to others. And the big idea was to really listen, radical listening, to really listen to the artists and give them a space. I thought it's a time where we can learn something and perhaps feel less alone and see that we share something, and that is a global connection. People said that maybe for the first time, the entire world is connected, and also the Western world for the first time experiences uncertainty in a way that it has not had for a very long time.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that question. And thank you, Frank, for sharing it with us. And let's move on. Well, what I mean about theater, aside from the show itself, is the program book given to me before the show starts. It has become the best memento for my theater night, since I saw it as a symbol, as a souvenir, as a symbol of the bond between the audience and the stage. Every time I think of this, I think of Playbill. So, Mr. Robert Wyagas, welcome to join us. Thank you. How do you see the broken of that bond I have mentioned in the time of Corona, and how can we rebuild it, if we can rebuild it in the future? Robert, you're muted.
I have to tell you, I come from more of the populist commercial theater side. Some of the people who've spoken so far so eloquently come from more of an academic side, but we do share one thing very important in common, and that is the feeling, the importance of the audience and the engagement of the audience. And you know something, that has really not changed. I've always believed that theater is not something that happens on the stage. I believe that theater is something that happens out in the hearts and the minds of the members of the audience. And I know that is everyone's concern. How is the audience going to still be connected with theater? And I have to agree with Frank, what he just said, that he believed that the audiences will come crowding back. I mean, look beyond the world of theater. Look at how much people crave to be in a same space with other people. Look how much people are desiring to be in restaurants, and how much people are desiring to go out to even to bars, to beaches, things like that. People are not saying, gosh, I'd love to sit home and drink. They're saying, I'd love to go out and be with others. And it's similar with the theater. That is what people want to do. I have a family member who worked at a department store, and he said that when they first opened, they planned for it to be a very small number of people at first, and then gradually building back. Now, of course, they're operating with social distancing and masks and things like that. He tells me that the first day they reopened the doors, there was a line of people waiting to get in. This is a store. This is just a shop, a place where you shop and just buy merchandise. One woman came in and was talking to the manager about how happy she was to be back. She actually started weeping. That was for a department store. That is the amount of feeling of engagement that people have with doing things in a group. And that is the essence of the theater. That goes back to the Greeks, that goes back to Aristotle writing about the experience of catharsis and anagoresis, that this was something that was beneficial for the public, that it was important for people to experience this, but it was important for them to experience it in a group. Now, I have to tell you, look at theater over the years. People are always worried, oh, is this going to kill theater? Theater has been remarkably resilient, partly because, I mean, look at all the children theater has given birth to. Movies are a child of the theater. Television is a child of the theater. These are all things that have taken what we do in our world and have just found a new way to transmit it. And that's why one thing about the internet, and of course I've worked in the internet all my adult life. Um, and I always try to, when I founded Playbill.com, I was trying, anytime there was some kind of a new technology, I always tried to find a niche for theater, how theater can live in this new world. And theater, as far as information is concerned, as far as little clips and things like that are concerned, that it's been very successful. The internet has been, the web, social media have been very accepting of that. But the thing that I've been waiting for all this time is for theater to give birth to a new form of theater that lives in this world. And it's held off on that. It's taken a long time. There have been a few things, Dr. Horrible's sing along blog. There have been a few things along the way, but this plague has forced theater people to now start to think, how can theater live in this new world? In many ways, the online world is a much closer analog to what happens in live theater than movies or television or really any of these things before. Why? Because of the interactivity. The great thing about the stage is when you're in a theater, not only are you experiencing what the actors are doing, not only are you experiencing what the writer has written, the actors are experiencing your reaction. And there's a feedback loop that exists between the two. And that is something that you can't get in the movies. No matter what you do in the movies, the movie is going to go on. Whereas online, and look at this, I'm talking now, but in an ordinary symposium, I would just talk. But in this, people are going to be able to ask me questions. They're going to be able to respond. That is the beauty of the online world. And I have been waiting for a new form of theater to give birth. So I don't see COVID as being the end of the world. I see it as being an incredibly exciting beginning, because all these things that I've mentioned before are not things that have killed theater. They are things that in many ways have enriched and changed. Theater has had to adapt to the children of theater. Um, I would like to quote something. There was a musical called Titanic, won the Tony Award a few years ago, and one of the songs that always resonates for me, there was a song that was sung by the person who operated the telegraph, a very old technology, but he was so excited by the potential of the telegraph, and in his song he sings, "The night was alive with 1,000 voices fighting to be heard, and each and every one of them connected to me. And my life came alive with 1,000 voices tapping out each word like 1,000 people joined with a single heartbeat." Now, he was talking about telegraph, but the people sitting out there tapping on their computers, responding, um, um, participating, is a very exciting development, I think, in the world of theater. And over the past couple months, I have tried to stay engaged in theater myself, because I was somebody who I was a former Tony voter, and in fact, I was on the Tony Awards nominating committee. So I literally saw every show that opened on Broadway. So I was used, as a critic and as a journalist, I was used to seeing 3, 4, sometimes 5, sometimes 7 shows a week, and now suddenly that's gone. So how have I been trying to stay in contact, just the way all the other theater fans have? There's a tremendous amount of theater that has been recorded and is available online, like Broadway HD, things like that. But the thing that I was curious, oh, also the wonderful Sondheim 90th birthday concert, where performers all over the country came on and sang some of Mr. Sondheim's songs to celebrate his 90th. But what I was looking for was people creating theater for the web. And some of them, there's urban stages, there are theaters in Chicago, there are theaters on the West Coast, all of whom are trying to stay engaged with their audiences by creating theater for, you mentioned Zoom. Zoom, of course, is the most used here in the US, but there are some others, and I think these people, as they create for the theater for the web, they're finding that the web is changing the kind of theater that they're able to do. They're finding that uh, the audience consumes theater in a slightly different way on the web. They want something that's paced a little bit differently. And you may say to yourself, well, how is it different from a movie? How is it? It's just another thing like a movie. It's not. And because of the interactive nature of it, you are getting a new hybrid form. And again, I think we are at the dawn of a very interesting development in theater. Um, and another child of the theater is being born before our very eyes. And we are all here. We're the midwives. We're here at the very beginning of this incredibly exciting new thing that's being born. And it's establishing its rules right now, as we're sitting here talking. Part of this very forum is part of the way that some of those rules are being defined. So that is very exciting. And I'm sure that when we get back, when those stages relight and we're able to file into the theater and sit next to each other once again, and we may be socially distanced, but we will be sitting next to each other again. I have a feeling that Zoom, that the theater that is being created, is going to influence what we see on the stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Robert. Very enlightening talks. Thank you. So now we have 5 minutes for questions and comments. Anyone
Interact
like
with.
to? Yeah. Thank you. Anyone like to raise a question, make a comment?
I want to share some experience. Oh, is there something wrong with the sound?
No, you sound fine.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I just really want to tell you that in China, because people have already get back to work and things is getting normal as before, but people are crazy to go to theater, and all the artists who were stuck in their home, they didn't stop creating things. They try online, and then some of them just take their online shows into theater, and also they influence each other. Yeah, that is what is now happening in China. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of the world. I think it will happen the same thing. It's a sad fact is some of the theater and artists cannot survive during this hard time. I don't know if when we go back to normal and if those theater and artists will come back into art field and recovered from the virus. That's the part I feel really sad about it. Like Shetler Theater was shutting down, I think. So I heard there are other shows and theater are shutting down because of the virus. They cannot survive anymore.
It's terribly it's terribly sad. It's terribly sad that people who have had to leave the industry and go into something else. It reminds me in a way, in a very different way, but it does remind me of the AIDS epidemic. Look at all the wonderful, the incredible artists that took away from us. And I am concerned that COVID, not only is it taking people away through actual illness and death, but is also a kind of a career death as well. Institutions, productions of plays that were supposed to be on Broadway, it's in a way, in a lesser way, but in a very real way, it is taking away wonderful artists and things that we can only mourn. We can only mourn. The theater itself will go on, but unfortunately, tragically, we're going to we will lose some of the wonderful artists and the wonderful plays and wonderful things that we would have had in the 2020s. But the 2020s are, as I said, they are going to always carry the impact of this virus. It's going to be a new world. There's no question about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, thank you, Robert. Tell me if I get this wrong. You said this Zoom play will make an impact on the future theater shows. But
Yes.
do you think that a Zoom play is a theater show, or is it completely two different things?
Well, you know, there are some big shows like Sweeney Todd and Porgy and Bess. People say, is it an opera or is it a musical? And I know they've asked Sondheim whether Sweeney Todd was an opera or a musical, and he said if it's done in an opera house, it's an opera. If it's done in a theater, it's a musical. And I think it's going to be the same thing with these Zoom plays. When they're done on Zoom, they're Zoom. When they're done in the theater, they're theater. But I do think that the way they're staged, the way they're written, I think is going to be affected by the fact that at one time they were on Zoom. I think you can translate one from the other, just like theater translates to different media. I think the things that are created in Zoom will be able to translate to different media as well and translate back to the live stage.
I wonder if I could just pipe in with a comment here.
Please do. That's the beauty of this. It's interactive.
First of all, hello, Robert. It's good to see you and hear you. I just wanted to say that when Frank was talking, and I wanted to ask him how many of the extraordinary interviews that he conducted had people saying that maybe it was okay not to make theater for a while. That is a reality for us. It's being enforced on us, but maybe it's okay that we not, some of us just not try to create these new forms. I agree that there will be new forms, and I was just celebrating one, and I love it when they appear. But you know, in 1593, there was a plague in London, and all the theaters had to close. What did Shakespeare do? Well, he went and he wrote 2 lyric poems, Venus and Adonis and The Rape of Lucretia, that made his career. It made him much, much more known among the aristocrats and the wealthy people who really control literary reputations. It gave him a reputation that he could not have had only as a working playwright in the public theater. And it launched him to a new level. He published them as works for reading, not for performance. He made good use of the year away from theater. And I'm just suggesting that when we do come back, one of the experiences that everyone is going to have to write about is this year without making theater. That's part of our reality. And so maybe that should be said too, that it doesn't always have to be just a loss. Yes, there will be terrible losses. You're right. But maybe we should also speak of the other things that one can do in this time.
Well, look at the Restoration. For 10 years, they could produce nothing in London. When after the Restoration occurred, look at the burst of creativity that came about from people who had exactly the kind of pent-up energy that you're talking about. The kind of they were reveling in the freedom to be able to write whatever they wanted to write. Also, how many of us have said over the years in our busy lives, how many of us have said, gosh, you know, if only I could take a few months off and not have to work, what things I could create, what poems I could write, what novels I could write. I think a lot of people have been writing those things, and I can't wait to see them.
Yeah, I think Jonathan's question is right on target. I would say even the majority of artists said, we are running too fast. We were doing too much.
Right.
We were not thinking enough, and we were not taking in enough, and we were not as much connected to our inner worlds, the ones, you know, Nelson wrote about, or back in other year, as we should be. Many said, I was planning a break anyway. I'm not sure if I would have done it, but I'm happy in a way for it. So perhaps that outburst of energy is not only that you could not act, that you could not be the actor, it is also because there's time to think, time to reflect, and to stop on the track and ask questions. One has stopped asking, why theater? What is it good for? Is it essential? Why do we need it? And what is useful? How does it give meaning to our lives or others? And I think many people, many artists are doing this. I think you're also right. They never stopped artistically doing the work. They will be writing or painting. So it's a different medium, But I do think everybody was forced to ask essential questions, the one we avoid or don't want to think about. And I think this is something that this time will bring with it a change. If you look at the whole Black Lives Matter movement, why was that death so significant? Why was it all of a sudden taken so serious? Joshua Sobol, the Israeli playwright who was on our talk, said, "It gave me hope." He said, "A life matters. A lost life had an impact." He said something we in Israel maybe have forgotten. He quoted a case where handicapped kid, basically the mother was holding the kid, was shot by the police because they thought he was a terrorist. So he said people didn't react to it. Maybe now, if it had happened in COVID, perhaps people would have. So I think it's the biggest civil rights movement in the history of the United States by sheer numbers of participants and engagement. And things already have changed. I think we might not be aware of it, but it is something that this time of Corona, as it will be called, I think, forced upon us.
And look at the very fact that people felt. So many people, when they were upset about something, they'd post something on their social media, and that was the end of it.
Yeah.
The people were impelled to come out and join together with other people. And even in the midst of COVID, they risked their lives to come out and be together and to express their outrage against that horrible, horrible thing. And I think that is going to carry over to so many areas, and theater is one of those areas. That's something, that common experience, being in the physical presence of other human beings and experiencing something in common, is something that I believe that we'll never use, no matter how good the internet gets, no matter how far advanced virtual reality gets. People say, oh, well, once there's virtual reality, everybody's just going to sit in their house and experience life virtually. Some people will, but I think that common experience is something that is deep inside of us, and it's something that will bring us all out and will bring us to the theater.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Frank, thank you, Jonathan, for sharing the insights with us. We will have a time when all the panelists are done, and we'll have time to talk freely and ask questions freely. So let's move on for now. Women play a vital role in theater industry, but their voice is underrepresented. Miss Lucille, you are a successful and productive producer. I'm very looking forward to hearing your perspectives. How has the pandemic affected your work, and what are your plans to overcome it? Can you share it with us?
Sure, absolutely. And first off, I'm so pleased to be here and to listen to the other esteemed panelists. In terms of how the pandemic has affected my work, it was clear March 12th, and that's pretty much when Broadway shut down, that this was going to be a cataclysmic event for our industry. Understanding it was a cataclysmic event for the nation, for our health, but for our industry, let's just take a look at the industry in the moment. I work commercially as a producer, and I also work as a producing director of a nonprofit. So I kind of am seeing this from multiple sides. Anecdotally, I was supposed to be working on a show that was going to be off Broadway in May. Because of COVID, it was very clear that that was all not going to happen. There were some logistical issues that we had to address in terms of, would we get our theater rental deposit back? Who's going to pay the ushers? That, how do we pay the artists for work that we had engaged them for, but that wasn't going to happen? What is our fiduciary responsibility to artists, to venues, to each other, to the community? We ended up shuttering that show and were able to pay our artists a kill fee, so that we could at least partially sustain their livelihood through, for what we had engaged them for. In August, I was a producer on a telethon in Texas, and it was an annual event for a nonprofit charity that is normally live in a studio, and also broadcast on the air at a local television station. From the very beginning, we understood that we had to have some version of this telethon because it was the thing that sustained this nonprofit, which is essentially a foster care facility and adoption facility for children. So we began to talk about, how can we create a hybrid experience, a hybrid theater experience? And that meant we had actually no audience. We pre-recorded a lot of things. We had pandemic protocols in place to make sure that everybody was safe. This is typically an event that I fly down to the city and I partake for a week. And I actually ended up producing this remotely from my apartment in New Jersey, which was heartbreaking to not be there. However, we took a lot of really great, we got a lot of great things from this experience, things that will live on regardless of whether COVID exists for another 6 months or another 6 years. It's not going to exist for another 6 years. We learned so much about how to deliver this visceral live experience that ultimately makes it better than it was before. And so when we talk about the idea of what is theater in the time of COVID, I think a lot about that. What is theater in general? What is live arts? For me, I see some Zoom theater. I see a lot of readings, and I don't, quite honestly, I think it's hit or miss. I think we haven't quite, as an industry, cracked the nut of what makes theater effective in the virtual sphere. But I think it is really crucial that we continue to try, that we are artists. That means we are experimental. We are continually creative thinking, trying to evolve. I think that's a crucial element of our community. We as artists provide an essential service to the community. So when I look at Zoom theater or virtual theater, I think that it should contain a sense of urgency or a sense of in the momentness. When you see a television show or you see a film or even a radio drama, it's a memory. So when we translate our theater, our live work, there has to be that sense of anything could happen in that moment of surprise. I think a lot about how can we bring magic into the visceral, into the virtual world of the theater we're creating. But those are my rules. Those are the things that I'm sort of molding into my idea of what theater practice is. Your rules, your ideas could be completely different. The important thing here is that you are creatively thinking and experimenting and testing and trying, sometimes succeeding and sometimes failing. But that's how we will evolve and grow as artists, as persons in the art, but also as an industry. I don't exactly know where we're going, but I will say that there are things that we are taking from this COVID virtual theater experience that will outlast this pandemic. We have a lot of benefits, a lot of assets to take from this experience. And that leads me to the question of what are we learning in this time of the pandemic? I really think we're learning a lot. I think we are able to, all of those experiments are teaching us a little bit more about our own arts practice. But I also think that what we have learned, let's say as a nonprofit, we are learning how to reach our audiences in a new way, in a new dynamic way. And it's going to broaden our reach as artists. I really think most institutional theaters, when this pandemic is over, I do not see them giving up some of the things that they have created to live in the virtual sphere, because it allows us to connect with patrons in China. It allows me, the assembly, to say to you, come to my virtual assembly, and you could be in China and come and experience that that arts experience online. And I don't see us wanting to. I, for one, am not willing to lose that opportunity, because the other thing that I think is integral to theater practice is that sense of connection, the connection between the artists in the audience, and the audience within each other. Dynamic change in our culture usually happens first in art. Almost like dreaming helps you sort of maneuver and deal with things in your psyche that you are grappling with. I feel like the arts do that for society. So all of the really groundbreaking changes that have happened in our world usually happen sometimes decades earlier in some form or fashion in art. So I think that the audience reach for us, our ability to sort of reflect ideas and change and evolution, is something that we're certainly not gonna let go of in favor of just those 100 people in a theater once or twice a night. So it leads me to say that the moment this happened in March, I had a sense of this is an opportunity for us to pause, an enforced pause. And as one of my other panelists mentioned, I think this is why George Floyd's murder hit a nerve with us, because we were not, our eyes weren't turned by the regular day-to-day routines of our lives, the busyness of our lives. We could focus on a true injustice, and we also had the time to look for change, to expect change, to look within ourselves, to see how we can change within ourselves, and not just the other person, those people out there. So this sense of pause and reflection is very powerful for us, and not necessarily a bad thing. When we think about the arts before COVID, it wasn't perfect. Live theater art wasn't perfect. So I look in this time of what are some things, what do I want to do? How do I want theater post-COVID to look like? What does the industry look like? How do we engage with our communities and our audiences? And so that leads me to the future. What will remain? What should we take from this experience? The one thing that for us as artists, adaptability, a sense of we are always artists, whether we're on stage or whether we're in our bedrooms writing a play. If you are using this pandemic to, I don't know, binge watch a lot of Netflix or read every Jane Austen novel, if that's what you need to do as an artist, you specifically, that is great. You do not have to write your seminal play in this moment if that's not where you are. You are still an artist, whatever choices you make, as long as you are being true to your artist's self, right? So if you are exploring Zoom theater, virtual theater, that's great too. But if you're just not into it, that's okay too. It doesn't make you less of an artist. You just, if you're an artist, you have to be bold. You have to be brave. You have to explore. And as long as you're doing those things, what manifests in this moment, in this crazy moment, is less important than how you evolve as an artist. The other thing I will say about what we should take with us is that it is clear to me that arts is a crucial part of our society, in our community. And I think that not just, I realize I'm preaching to the choir a little bit here. I think that the rest of society is understanding that too, because there's nothing else to do but watch art in a lot of ways, or like, so I feel like pre-COVID, I don't think we have done a good enough job of requiring our governments, our society, to invest and value the arts the way they should be. As an industry, we are going to be grappling with some major economic issues, particularly in New York. But there are like health insurance, pensions that for months, nobody has been putting money into those things, but we still have artists who need health insurance, who should have a safety net when they retire. So I believe that one of the things we should take from this experience is a sense of organization and a mission to ensure that there is support, institutional support of the arts, certainly in the U.S. So I see you here, Eddie. So I'm gonna leave it at that.
No, thank you, Miss Lucille. Thank you very much. Very beautiful talk. I'm so deeply touched. I need a second to calm myself. It's very beautiful. So now it's time to raise a question, to make a comment. Anyone like to join us?
I have a question.
Yeah, of course, please.
Hi, Meredith. I don't think I've met you, but I love hearing you talk. So your vision for some of the streaming possibilities of theater continuing after COVID, this is a pet peeve of mine, that this has always been so difficult in theater. And we all know that one of the impediments is the unions. You can't get anything but a 3-minute B-roll of video to use for a United States produced theater piece to show. Do you see that loosening up after this?
It's hard to say, because I will agree with you. Unions, particularly the New York theater unions, are challenging. And I anecdotally, I produced a show off Broadway in 2014, sorry. And I wanted to live stream it to schools, and not even just 5 schools. I think we wanted to live stream it. And what's interesting to me is the powers that be institutionally in theater are not inherently risk takers, which is interesting to me because we're risk takers on stage. I had to convince my general management team that we were doing this. This is going to happen. Nobody wanted to do this. And when we talked to the union at the time, like, the Actors Equity would send us to SAG-AFTRA, and SAG-AFTRA would send us to Equity. It was just a quagmire of red tape. But we did it. We were able to do it. And you're subsequently seeing live stream stuff even before COVID. I think with the Broadway HD, the opportunities to see shows online is going to help. It's also here. I would not deign to put something in the mouths of the unions, but I think it's a pragmatic solution to include live streaming as a viable option, because for the reasons I said, you are increasing your marketing, your outreach, your audience, not just for my show, but for any show. And that is something that is really important to the safety, or to the health of the industry as a whole. Not just New York Broadway, but New York downtown and Dallas theater and Atlanta theater. If all of these places value and participate in the arts, then we'll all be doing better. So my expectation is, my hope is that it will get easier and that more people will do it. I will say I'm working on something now that is using a media form, and it took my GM quite a long time to, like, do we go to equity? Do we go to SAG-AFTRA? And to, when you go to the union, to negotiate the deal. And so it does take time. It's going to take fortitude. And there's no doubt, like, we're going to have to not take no for an answer on some score and just keep chipping away until we can make those things happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thank you both. I'm sorry I have to double time so that we'll have enough time for Q&A later. So let's move on. Another topic I think we definitely need to pay attention to is education. In particular, how has the pandemic affected theater teaching? There are thousands of theater students everywhere in the world waiting in a line for a class that will not take place. Many universities are now using Zoom as their classroom. A theater is a practical course. It calls for face-to-face interaction. People are wondering, what has teaching been look like during the pandemic? And how do you be creative to teach acting online? Or should we just give it up and let it be? James, that's your cue.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Okay, you're good.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. This is James Li Jun, and I will share my. I'm sorry. Let me check the.
You can share your screen using the share screen.
I think is where is it? I think yeah, here. Okay. Everybody can see that. It's a little bit.
We can see that.
It's a little bit for me here is buffering, still buffering. Okay. Right. Okay. This is Li Jin, and I'm from the Chinese National Academy of Arts. I'm also a director, and I'm also a teacher, and I was graduated from the London for the master degree, and I was graduate a PhD of director research. So my topic is about the education things and in post-pandemic era, because for me now, as the previous as previous says, like Eddie says, there's so many theaters, like Broadways, like in London's, like even Hollywood, something like damaged. But now I think for the education things, is also get these kind of problems. And previously, there's a one Mr. Robot. I think Mr. Robot said we definitely into a new forms, theater forms, and I agree that. But I want to say one more things is if we create a new, if we can create a new form of theater, we do need we do need the new forms of theater education forms, because if we educate people, arts people, theater people, still in the traditional way, I think for an educator, we can't, and I think we hardly really to get a new form of theater, because our education form is still old and still tradition. So, but let's begin. My presentation is, firstly, I want to share one things like you can see Eddie as well in here. Uh, During the pandemic in China, I mean, some months ago, we using, I think we using 12 weekends from 800 audience to more than 100,000 raised to people watching us is theater debate. During the debate, we invited so many famous and even famous directors and famous actors. Uh, we invited them to join us, and at the beginning there's just 100 or 800 people. I mean, in the area of the China, inside China, and then after 12 weeks, because 1 week we do one show. After 12 weeks, this number is going crazy to getting crazy numbers, getting so many peoples to focusing on this debate. We'll talk about the theaters. We even invited some people. We even invited some. We also invited some famous actors and actresses to show some part of things. You know, like some famous phrase, like to be or not to be, or something like that. So I think that is a good example to have so many people to focusing on that. Even some audience, they never think about, they never watch, they never go into the theater, but now they know so many theater things because of the debate. Okay, but yes, that is a good things. During the pandemic, we have so many debates, we have so many chances, we have so many chances to have a people get together with Zoom, with some app. This application is called Yizhibo in China. It's very famous, and then the online education, the drama and the theater education for me, there are so many issues and so many problems. And this picture, this photo is one of my friends. It's called Lu Nuan. He is now working in the Beijing Film Academy, but he is also teaching some drama things. And I think for literature lessons, like if you
James, would you
can
please
say,
double time?
sorry.
Would you please be a little bit quicker? You know.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. For the literature lessons like Chekhov, Shakespeare's, uh, you can say something to the a student, like what is Chekhov means, what is Shakespeare's means, what is to be or not to be means. But for acting or directing lessons, I think it's very hard to do, to teach the students how to act online, because it's need face to face. And also there are so many student exchanges program between China and America and between China and Russia, and because of the COVID-19, they cannot do this exchanging things. But what is the what? But in this case, how to do that and how we can manage it? Because if everyone doing these things online, so why we need student exchange to send some student to American, to send back some student from the American to back to China? So that doesn't make sense. So for stage design, for the drawing things, I think is very hard to do, and even it's not to do that. And online theater shows in China now is still popular, but the things is the most for me the most good things for musical concert is very good because the people can enjoy that. But for dance, yes, could be. But for drama, it's not that kind of good to see that, because for music, for dance, the people can can do it. The audience uh, can see it very good. But for drama, you less, as somebody said, is not good kind of environment. Uh, so, what is my problems? What is the issues? Is all the arts education could be online. I think painting is a little bit good, but what about dance? What about sculpture? What
Well, James,
about
3 minutes. 3 minutes. Please.
yes? What about architecture? So I'm finishing, and the other things is what is our choice? Uh, we do some provide, and we do some receive. How we provide, how we receive, and that is kind of things. And what is the future? The future, we have a VR, we have AR, we have AI. It is our theater future. The theater's future is I don't know, because somebody said it is the future. That is my issues and problems, and I'm very sorry, and I will go back to another uh, meeting. So thank you very much. Thank you all the people, because I love you, and I love your speech, and I learned so many things. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, James. Thank you, James, for sharing an example in China for us. And fortunately, he's going to get offline, so questions may not be an option. But we have free time for Q&A later. So I see Raphael online. Raphael, are you there? Hello, Raphael.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, great. So last but not least, let's take a look at Brazil. The homeland of Augusto Boa. I wonder
Let me
what would
let me
Boa
put
react to the
my
pandemic if
my
he's still
phone.
with us today. But Brazilian people like you is full of passion
Yeah.
and imagination, so you must have a lot of strategies to stop performance art from losing ground. So, Raphael, it's your turn. We're looking forward to your observation.
Okay, thank you very much for this presentation and the opportunity to discuss. I prepare something to show you, and I have to share my screen, and I hope to do it the best way I can. Okay, maybe this. See my screen?
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, okay, great. So,
Raphael, you have 10 minutes, so make good use of it.
okay, I will try to. So first of all, thank you for this opportunity to discuss this topic. It's really important to think about performing arts in these contexts, to think about the virtual platforms and the ways of relating to the audience. I am Rafael. I live in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and I'm currently finishing my PhD here in theater, as you know, Eddie. And in parallel with this, I worked at SASCI. It's a Brazilian institution which has been developing important social work in Brazil for more than 70 years, emphasizing cultural actions and projects involving performing arts and operating throughout Brazil. So the work I do at this institution has allowed me to get in touch with many artists, Brazilian producers, and institutions like SASCI that contribute enormously to strength cultural development in Brazil. So, as you know, we are dealing with this situation, coronavirus pandemic, and the workers in the cultural sector had their activities interrupted in the early months of 2020. The pandemic created a very hard scenario for artists, producers, and technicians who lived exclusively for their functions in performing arts. So, faced this situation in Brazil, many artists and cultural institutions had to reinvent their practice to survive and to be alert to this they call new normal, and I call abnormal. So I choose as a title of my speech, strategy to postpone the end of the performing arts. So this title is it refers important Brazilian indigenous leader called Ailton Krenak. This is Ailton Krenak. He has a book called Ideas to Postpone the End of the World, in which he criticizes the idea of humanity as something separated from nature. I personally consider it's impossible to develop artistic projects or something like that without paying attention to a specific cultural context in which these activities are inserted and how the cultural agents are involved on it. Therefore, I'm going to present three cases that I consider to be successful in their proposition for developing the performing arts in the current context of the pandemic in Brazil. These are the cases. The first case I'm going to talk is called PAN. It's a festival. It's called PAN, Power of the Art of the North, which took place in May, and it was the first online festival of performing arts to include participation of artists from the North region of Brazil. The North region of Brazil is located in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, and it is mostly negligenced by the Brazilian public policies. To create the creation of the virtual space to host a daily program of 20 shows from all the states of the North region over the 10 days aim to minimize the impact of the social isolation, allowing the public to have access to art without leaving home. This close relationship with the audience from a digital platform allowed access to the shows and discussions that would be hard to connect to otherwise, considering the difficulties of the access and the little knowledge that we have of the Amazon artists. So this is a quote of the Ana Oliveira, the general coordinator of the Pan Festival. I will not read right now because I have not much time to do this, but she talks about the context of the festival. So this is a picture of an indigenous woman that presented online in this festival. An important part of PAN programming was the call for artists, technicians, and cultural producers from the sector to reflect on the programming during debates that were held after the shows, promoting a rich discussion with the artists involved in also a critical reflection on how to produce artistically in the context of the pandemic. Due the artists, technicians, and producers' engagement, PAN showed itself as truly collaborative, effective, and powerful network coordinated entirely by Amazon artists. So another action that I consider interesting in this context is a festival called Art as Breath. In Portuguese is Arte como Respiro. It is launched by a respect Brazilian cultural institution called Itaú Cultural. It's an institution related to a bank in Brazil. To move the creative economy quickly and effectively, Itaú Cultural launched an announcement aimed to artists from various fields in April of this year. A large number of entries led Itaú Cultural to expand its initial selection proposal for 120 to 200 shows involving the performing arts. These productions receive a sum of up to 10,000 to present a work online. Among the works created, 42 works were performances producers before the isolation, and in another works, 158 works were produced during the quarantine. So the Itaú Cultural, it's a very big institution in Brazil, and I'm going to show you some pictures of this festival that were online. So this is a quote by the manager of this festival in Brazil, Galeana Brazil, and she talks about the diversity of the performances and how the program was very diversity. The program I believe that the main purpose of this festival was to recognize and generate researches based on the groove artistic practice shared by social networks. Itaú Cultural invested in a group of artists, individuals, and collectives who found themselves in an economically hard situation. These actions provide a real cultural respite, contributing to the creative economy in Brazil. And finally, I will present a case that I have deeply involved here in Brazil, which is the public call for Sesc Cultura Convida. It's like a festival online. This cultural initiative was launched by Sesc, the institution that I work, in August of this year, and it is still in progress, contemplating more than 400 projects by professionals and for various Brazilian artistic and cultural fields. So, from home, artists, teachers, technicians, and masters of the cultural, popular culture from all the regions of the country perform virtually in a varied program of performing arts in formats such as podcasts, workshops, and performances online. Uh, this is a huge initiative in Brazil that I'm involved in right now. This is a quote of the manager of the SESC that I work. He talks about the institution and how this initiative moves the economy in Brazil in an artistic perspective. So the programming of the SESC Cultura Convida, this festival, shows lives and record presentations from Monday to Saturday at various times. It includes concerts, literary meeting, performances, and workshops on performing arts as well. With an investment of 500,000 of reais, the Sesc Cultura Convida selected proposals from large centers, small communities, and countrysides, focusing on diversities and social inclusions. More than, oh, yeah, can I finish? Just a sentence. I heard a sound.
Of course, yeah.
Okay. So this is, I think these three initiatives are considered prosperous in the pandemic context in Brazil. These three, and so I selected to show you some points, and I think I'm showing right now some cultural manifestations that we have in Brazil, and it is difficult for them right now because they don't have a perspective to be in the street and to show their works. But these three initiatives are like a brief for them, and they support them to continue to create and to avoid the end of the performing arts. And as we say here, to resist to exist, and continue to work as an artist, as a technician, as a producer in various places of Brazil. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Eddie, and the main board of the Bound Festival.
Thank you very much, Raphael. Thank you for sharing your observation with us. Thank you very much. Now it's a little bit late, so we can go directly to the Q&A part. So any questions, any comments, things you want to say, things you want to ask, now it's time. Yeah, Raphael, we're still in your screen.
I have to...
yeah.
And? Oh my God, I'm terrible.
A question? No.
Yeah, of course, Frank, please.
Yeah, do you hear me? Yeah. First of all, hi, Raphael. Good to see you.
Hey, Frank. Good to see you. It's you.
We hear numbers of COVID are incredibly high. How does SASCI organization balance? Because I know it's also involved in healthcare. How do they balance healthcare and artistic engagement? Do they see that as hand in hand or opposite, or where do resources go?
yeah, we have 5 programs to hold this institution together, and I am in charge of the cultural arm of this institution, and we think, and the thing is how to make it work together, how culture engage sports, and how sport is related to the health. And thank you. Uh, Someone helped me with the screen. And yes, it's difficult to answer, Frank. But what we're trying to do is to make something not just separate, but put the things together. And the money from comes from the workers that work in the market, and a small money of some workers contribute with this institution a lot of works, and so we have this amount of money, and what we do is to trying to spend as good as we can, and to that is all I can say, because it's difficult, it's complicated to talk about this, because I am just a small part of the institution. It's really complex and wide.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raphael. Thank you very much. I got a question to James. James, are you here with us? James, you are muting.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to read it to you. There is an audience from China said that rumor said there was a plan to create a live stream performance class in Beijing Film Academy. You know, like TikTok performance, and
yeah.
you know that, right? So, and this audience wish to know your attitude towards that. Is an TikTok performance actually a kind of performance?
Right. Yes. To be honest, I think as past I said, if we don't have the new form of theater education, we don't really have the new form of theater, because nowadays there are so many painters drawing things. They don't use the traditional old tools. They just use the iPad to paint, to draw things. And if they from the beginning they are using these kind of things, and they can create a new form, because the tools, the education way is changing, is transforming, is transformed. So I don't think the the transforms like okay, you are writer, okay, Hanchen, you are a writer. When you're writing a new play and a new drama, is the truth that think you are writing things for real theater, or you are writing things for virtual theaters? That's different things. So that means if one day you are writing things for virtual theaters, just for virtual theaters, this is your this is your creation. There's new forms of theater. Otherwise, you just transform the traditional theater onto the screen. That is not the real transform. That is that very basic things. Okay. So for me is, if we can build a new like TikTok drama, you have to learn from the beginning. You have to have these technologies. You have to have the new ideas when you're writing things, when you're acting things, when you're performing things. this is only for virtual. This not for real. That's not for real theater things, and then transform to the online to the Zoom. That is so that is not a real creation.
Okay.
But we need a real creation.
Okay. Thank you very much. And anyone else like to shed a light on us? It's free Q&A time. Actually, we can turn on our cameras, right? So it's a
yes. I have something to say.
Everybody.
Yeah, of course.
Can you hear me? Yes. So I have something.
Wow.
What?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So because we in our promotion and our website, so Richard Schachner, he's also invited to be a guest speaker in the Q&A, but he just sent an email because today is Rosh Hashanah, so he's celebrating this special day with his family, so he may not come to our panel. Yeah, but he also have a forum. It's about after COVID-19, what is performance? So collectively, different writers and artists put their words in it, so people can also check it out about his opinion on after COVID performances. Yes.
Okay, great. It's sad we don't have Schechner here, but it's good we have everyone else. So yeah, let's talk, let's chat. Anyone like to say?
I want to thank you, and I want to thank all the previous Mr. and Mrs. So I today I learned so much things, and I'm very appreciate that. And I like Frank, I like Jonathan, I like Russell, I like Lucio. Very good speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have one thing that I really want to share and also ask for help with everyone here. So I was talking about some artists and some institution cannot survive during this pandemic, including the program I'm in now in Hunter College. So Jonathan is my professor in Hunter College, and Robert used to be my classmates in Hunter College. But this fantastic theater program is being terminated by the school all of a sudden. I think Jonathan and other faculties received the email from the school one day in July without any previous notification. And after learning that, all of us was shocking because the program is fantastic. And we learned so much, and also the payment of the tuition fee is very low, and but we didn't spend a lot of money from the school, and we learn and we gain, and we really we really have working artists in the program. That's why I'm thinking, how can we survive as artists and as the people in these institutions of arts and theater to survive during this pandemic? I don't know how we can do it. I'm hosting this festival, but it's online. I still feel the difficulty to communicate with people online is still different from in reality. When I want to hold hands with people and support each other, it's hard. We have to meet in Zoom and talk in Zoom and then lose contact the rest of time if we're not in the meeting room. So I just, I'm asking for help, but also I kind of want to know, out of your ideas for the people who is trying to survive as an artist in the pandemic, do you have any suggestions?
wow, it's so fun.
Well, first of all, Tianting, thank you for saying how much our program means to you. We are outraged by the college's attempt to shut us down and are trying to fight it. I appreciate your mentioning that. Theater people have to be scrappy, even in the academy. We have been told in no uncertain terms that we are not essential. In America, an essential worker is someone who still gets to work during the pandemic. And a non-essential worker has to go on furlough or stay home or whatever. And theater has been declared inessential. But there is a sense in which theater is always pressed to argue that it matters, that it's essential. We have to be people who always keep in mind why it's actually necessary to do what we do, because we're always surrounded by people who doubt that. And so I don't know if I can be a pep talker or give you the right wisdom, words of wisdom. But what I would say to you is everyone needs to remember more than ever before why they ever wanted to do this work, and keep in touch with whatever that was, because it's odd to do theater. It's odd to study theater. Everyone on this panel is an exceptional person for just that reason. And the same is true of our whole audience. Who would watch all of this and listen to this if they weren't an exceptionally interesting person who thinks that all of this stuff matters? You must remember what it was in you that once felt you knew the answer to that.
So I'll give a little bit of a pep talk here. I think that the answer to your question, there's a short-term answer and a long-term answer. And the short-term answer is we need to check in with each other. Your circle, check in with your circle. What do they need? If there's something you can do to help them, even if it's like, send them takeout or call them to just gab. There's those short-term connections, even though we're not in real life, that will get us through this. We have to do these things. We have to socially distance for the longer term good. Also, arts thrives in times of adversity. So all of these things that we are feeling and experiencing, that you are feeling and experiencing, is a fertile ground for your art. I'm not saying look for adversity, because as we can see, it comes, but we have to take the good with the bad, I guess, in a way. And again, we're always artists, whether it's good times or bad times. And our unique look at the world around us is crucial to society. And I can speak to this from an industry point of view and also just from a holistic point of view. One, industry point of view. The economic impact of the arts in New York City is astronomical. New York City does not exist in as a positively economic space as it does without the arts. Billions and billions of dollars, not just in Broadway ticket sales, but in restaurants, in hotels. We are an industry that has value within the economy, and that is true for that, or it can be true for Atlanta, for New Orleans, for Sacramento, for Phoenix, for every city. I think we do a poor job of lobbying and advocating for ourselves in that respect. Holistically, we have a skill set that is so valuable to our societies and that other industries are not teaching. Because theater and arts education is suffering in schools, we now have a workforce that is uncomfortable with the soft skills of public speaking, listening in a negotiation. Those are all skill sets that we have been grooming and developing for decades. And that has a lot of real value in our community. It may not exactly translate into the success of our arts products, but it's a skill set that's valuable and worthwhile in our industry. And I think that we, again, have to organize and insist on society valuing our work product, because we are, if you ask any person, what are the 3 things that you would take on a desert island? Most of them would say some kind of art. One of those 3 things is going to be some kind of art, right? So let's not, I think we need to, I think we undervalue ourselves because the world is telling us we're non-essential. But what this pandemic has shown us is that we are uber essential. That may not translate into us being able to do live theater because it's not safe, it's not healthy, but we are an essential part of society, and we just need to find ways to put forth those essential skills and that essential part of society in a world where it's really difficult to meet. And now I will stop there. Oh, Robert, you're muted.
How's that? I just wanted to add one thing. One thing that's very, very important is to keep creating during this time. And it's a downtime where we're not necessarily on the stages. We're not necessarily in front of people the way we want to be, but on a personal level. And Meredith spoke very eloquently of the importance of theater to the community. Even in a capitalist society, on a strictly capitalist basis, it's incredibly important. There is city after city. She mentioned Atlanta. There are many other cities where people got together and they saved the theater building in their city because they felt that it was not just the spiritual heart of the city, though it was also the anchor to rebuild the center of the city economically. And that Meredith's point on this is extremely well taken. But on a personal level, and Tianding, I think part of your question is also on a personal level, I think it's important to keep creating. During this time when I wasn't able to see all the shows that I wanted to see, I've actually been working with some investors to start a new theater magazine. It's going to be called Encore, and it's going to debut in January 2021. And people would say to us, well, why on earth would you start a theater magazine when there's no theater? That's crazy. Well, guess what? As we're approaching theaters around the country with this idea and trying to get them to promote the new magazine, theater after theater is saying, what a great idea. What a great time to do this. We have nothing that we can give our audiences right now, even though we have all their money for tickets. We would love to have something to give them. And again, this goes back to my point earlier about people's hunger for theater, and the theaters themselves, that they see this as something that is of value to them, that staying engaged with their audiences is something that's of value to them. So I've tried to stay creative. I see theater artists around me. I watch the things that they create and that they put on the web. Incredible creativity. So this is the time. This is the time where we may seem like it's down, but this is not the time to give up. Now is the time. Think of it as a forest. There's been a terrible forest fire and the trees have all burned, but the roots underneath are still alive. And that forest will grow back again because those roots are still alive. And that's our job. That's what we can do during this time, is to make sure that our roots stay alive.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the pep talks. Thank you for the ideas, for the solutions. Thank you very much. So, anyone else like a word?
Yes, one more thing is I think you using the survive this word. The survive is okay, yes, we need survive, but before the pandemic, before COVID-19, I think we we always survive. So in all time, in the whole life, we always survive. So yeah, so is not the end of the world. So it is not that
Exactly.
bad. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, Frank, Raphael, anything you want to add?
Very shortly. I think yes, these are terrible times, as terrible as it gets. Let's also be honest. Theater is not essential and necessary. Everybody can survive without. But what kind of life would it be? It's like you don't really need a house. You can live in a cave or in a forest dwelling, and you would survive. Um, I think, and Karl Hancock Rax, the great New York poet and writer, said that. He said, we have to use the time to think about us and what's essential and what do we want in life. If we don't change what is happening in the world, what did all these people die for? There's over 1 million in the world, 250,000 in America, as far as we know, most probably many more. He said, theater perhaps and art has also very long fed the machine. It was part of drugging the sugar industry. Instead of theater as something that also is subversive. This is a resistance against what is wrong. That we all try to please or to be successful. Instead of saying, no, this is not working, something has to be different. In theater, if it has any importance in the symbolic way, in the imaginary way, and then also in the real way, is because it is a model for something. If it exists on a stage for a moment, it's real, and something happens when people observe, like a homeopathic pill, as we all said before. But I think the real important thing is, and Eugenio Barba said that, and Bogart quoted also that when you shoot the arrow, and this will be over, nothing lasts forever, not the good things, also not the bad things, but now is the time to aim before we shoot. What are we going to do really with our lives, with our work, with our energy? What is important, what is needed, and what is necessary. And I think this is what we are all called upon. And it's something very serious for our very own personal lives, but also for the art that we do and what society we want. And this is a moment, perhaps, where there is a chance and people are listening, because people, especially in America, know and feel this is not going right. Things are going down the hill. And maybe it's always been like this, but now it's obvious. And I think this is the important thing that this virus perhaps is teaching us, or not teaching us, because I don't know if it's a teacher, but I think we have to be aware of it and take that very serious, and also as a perhaps unique chance, the only chance in our lifetime where we might sit for a year around and think about what do we do.
Thank you very much, Frank. And Meredith,
Yeah.
you said say something, please.
You guys have all inspired me, and something clicked for me as I'm listening to you speak, and that is I'm not so sure theater was thriving before the pandemic. Some of the most exciting theatrical pieces of work struggled to find air in our city, in New York in particular. I think particularly of the show Here Lies Love, which is, to me, 21st century theater. If it weren't for the fact that Broadway is essentially a 20th century industry, we would have seen it on Broadway and it would have been enormously successful. So I don't know that theater was thriving for me, and maybe for others as well. And so this goes out to our audience as theater practitioners. As when the world turns back on again, what would you like? What kind of theater would you like to see? What would the theater world look like post-pandemic? And what can you do to make that happen? And that's really all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Now, everyone, would you please, everyone, just turn on your camera so we can take a picture together? You know, like we are all together in a room. Okay. And Tianting, can you do that from your side? Yeah, please do.
Yes, I have a screenshot, and
Thank you.
so I think, yeah, we need to get a rest. So, but the last word I want to say is I just feel really honored to have every one of you here, because you are my teacher and you are my friends and you are the people who I respect the most in theater field in the world. I'm so glad, because I'm just young and still learning and trying, and young artist. And but I feel so honored to that you can come to this panel and share everything with the audience, the viewers, especially in China. We have over 6,000 viewers during this conversation. I don't know who they are, but I still feel so happy that people love to stay and hear whatever we talk. And even they have to see the captions, but they want to stay. They want to hear. They want to know what we're doing and who we are, and they want to know about theater. Yeah, so thank you, everyone. And also thank you to no matter who is watching in front of the little screen. We're together.
And thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you
Very much for this wonderful
Thank you, Tianjin.
Thank you. And one tiny thing I wish to add: theater is not dead. Theater has been through a lot of crises in 2,000 years. Is it dead? No, it's involved, and we are the proof of that. So thank you, and I will see you in theater.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.